Today I want to take a look at a couple of cool arpeggio ideas that I use in Prog. This first example comes from the solo to my song The Ascent, and this is over an A minor chord. And the chord coming before it is C sharp minor. And we're really in the key of C sharp minor, so what I do on this A minor is play A melodic minor, because that has more of the notes of C sharp minor, so it connects these two chords together nicely. And I'm doing this shape to start with. And really what this is an extended A minor shape. So up here you could do kind of your basic triad sweep shapes, and I like those. They sound cool and they have their place, but typically when I'm going for arpeggios, I'm going for a more extended sound because I think it's more colorful. So I'm up in this sort of pentatonic box area, but I'm adding these extensions to A minor. So third, root, major 7, major 6, third, and then the ninth. So I'm getting those extended notes to it that are a little more colorful. Picking wise, I'm trying to do whatever is the smoothest for me. So in this case, down, up, slide, up, slide. I want these kind of licks to flow as seamlessly as possible, so I'm really just using the pick to strike new notes where I need to. That kind of a sound. And from there I move to this shape. It's like that classic A minor shape. But I'm going to add some extensions there as well. So we have the major 6 again, major 7, ninth, major 7, through. And I'm not afraid to throw scale type runs in the middle of these arpeggios. So down at the bottom here, that's all right from the scale. The scales and arpeggios aren't really separate, right? The arpeggios are coming from the scale, so there's no reason you can't throw little scale runs in the middle of your arpeggios, and in fact, that makes them sound a little more interesting to my ear, so often I will do that kind of thing. So if I connect those two shapes together, it's a little tricky to get that little slide in there. And your fingers are kind of smashed in there, so when practicing a lick like this, I would focus on the little transition sections. To end off this lick, I do these sweeps. And what those are augmented shapes. And I talked about in my lesson on the minor major 7th chord, which I put out a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the augmented triad that happens on the top of that arpeggio. Because I'm in melodic minor here, I'm thinking in melodic minor, I can use that minor major 7th sound. So really what I'm doing is playing what sounds like a A minor major 7 chord. But I'm using these augmented triads to achieve that sound. So I'll do this whole lick slowly. Let me try it up to speed. One more time. This next example comes from my song Surface Tension. This is happening over a funky fusion type groove in 9/8. The lick looks like this slowly. And this is happening over a G sharp minor 6/9 chord. But I'm kind of thinking of this as a C sharp dominant sound, or C sharp 13. So what I'm doing to start with is playing an E sharp half diminished arpeggio. So when you're playing over a dominant chord, you can almost always play a half diminished arpeggio built off the third. So the third of C sharp is E sharp. So I play a half diminished over C sharp. That almost always works. It's a really nice sound. So what I'm doing here is to do that shape, and I'm just doing like this octave repeating shape. And then from there, I'm doing this C dominant shape. So straight up C sharp 7 arpeggio. I like that shape a lot. What I'm doing is to fill in the gaps with some chromaticism. So I go root to flat 7, back, and then chromatically into the 3rd, then work my way up the arpeggio. When I get to the top, I do some scale runs. Just like I talked about in the last licks, adding some scale runs inside of arpeggios sounds really nice. So the whole thing slowly. Part of the reason I do the chromaticism is it sounds cool, but in this case I'm in 9/8, so it's also working rhythmically. I want this lick to end right on the downbeat of the next measure with a new chord. So to fill in that space of time, sometimes the chromaticism helps with that as well. So I'm getting the interesting sound, but because of the odd rhythms, I'm also getting the correct amount of notes. So a lot of times these kind of licks for me are born out of what makes sense rhythmically. As I'm writing these things, I'm thinking, okay, I need a couple of extra notes to fill up the right amount of space. So that's where the chromaticism comes in. So it kind of works twofold for me, is to be rhythmically accurate with what's happening, but also to fill in the space and make it more interesting with some chromaticism. This third lick comes from my song Pro Tempore. It's one of the only big flashy licks in the whole song, and it's this octave repeating tapping idea. This is using a D add 9 arpeggio. So we have a D major arpeggio, root 3rd 5th, and I'm going to add the 9th in. So here's the root, 9th, 3rd 5th, and then the root again. So this tapping shape here, I'm going to take that down an octave on the G string, and one more octave on the A string. And in the actual lick, I double tap each of those root notes on top. Something I do probably way too much is the double tapping thing. It's a very cool sound. That kind of a thing. And this is tricky if you haven't done this kind of stuff before, because the tracking involved is really tough. So I'm kind of using my eyes and also just my intuition of knowing what the shape feels like. So I usually look at my right hand because that's the hand that's less used to jumping around on the guitar. But I am kind of looking back and forth with my eyes. So there's a physical element to kind of knowing where your hand is, but also a visual element of knowing where you're, looking and seeing where your fingers need to be. So it needs to be taken slowly until those jumps feel comfortable. But once you get it down, this idea can be expanded really far. I could just take a basic major triad, like D major. Just the same shape we had, but I'm not going to play the 9th. And I can jump that around in octaves. Pretty hard to do, so if I was practicing that, I might do more notes on one string at a time. Give your eyes and your hands more of a chance to make that jump accurately. But you can do other sounds with this shape as well. I could do like a minor sound with the added 11. This one I'll do a lot. Or you could do a major with an added sharp 4. Lots of cool sounds to be found here, and it's a really nice way to get these big arpeggios without sweeping, to do this tapping idea. And because you're repeating the same shape in octaves, once you get the technique down, it's actually not that difficult to do, and it's a pretty easy idea. It kind of mirrors what a piano player would do. So if a piano player plays an arpeggio, it looks the same in each octave. So by doing a tapping shape like this, my arpeggio looks the same in each octave. So it kind of gets rid of the weird guitar hurdle that you have to do when you're playing arpeggio. So if I play a sweep arpeggio, like I have to do some weird jumping around. The shape's not the same everywhere. But if I do these tapping things, it eliminates a little bit of that problem, at least for this particular kind of thing. last lick comes from my song Cosmic Void during the solo. It's this big sweeping / alternate picking lick. It's happening over an F minor 9 chord. And essentially what I do is I play this sweeping shape. This is an F minor 9. Really good shape on its own. It's one I use a lot. But what I do is I fill in some of the gaps on the G string with more scale tones. And technically, I sweep through, so down, hammer, sweep, and then on the G string, I alternate pick, and I hit back. And the idea is you get this aggressive alternate picking sound on the G string, but you get the smoothness of the sweeping down below, so it's this juxtaposition of the different sounds of picking. And you could legato that. That's a cool sound as well, but I like the aggressiveness of the picking in between the arpeggio. And what I do is I take this shape, I move it and build it off the third of the chord, in this case A flat, and I build a major 9 arpeggio there. This is all happening over F minor, and this is a chord substitution that works pretty much all the time. You can build a major chord off the third of a minor chord. So the third of F minor is A flat, and I'm going to build a major, in this case, a major 9 arpeggio off of that. And it's going to work. I'm going to get all these extensions. So here's the F. If I play A flat major 7 over top of that, it sounds really nice. So that's a chord substitution I'll do a lot, and it works pretty much all the time. So I play this first shape, and I slide it up and do a major 7 shape, which is essentially, it's the same kind of picking, just adjusting the notes. But what I do is to continue that shape up, I fill out the rest of the major 9 arpeggio. More scale tones on the top. So it's these 3 note per string kind of scale runs in the middle of these arpeggios. Then from there I finish it off with a big F minor triad sweep. This is a shape I've used for a long time and I really like. It's just a straight up F minor arpeggio. But I just go down it in this case. I slide off that last note. So all connected, it looks like this. Now this is super fast and there's some jumping around that makes it tricky. But what I do is focus on each kind of section on its own and then see if I can link them together. I'm not completely warmed up, so we'll see how well I can do this. One more time. And there you have it. So there's a couple arpeggio ideas that you can try out for yourself. Now, if anything, I would just take small chunks of these and try to work them into your own playing. That's basically what I've done, is I've learned some arpeggio shapes I like from different players, kind of combined them until it became somewhat my own style of playing arpeggios. And for me, I just wanted to get away from always doing basic minor and major sweeps. Now, that stuff is really cool, and sometimes that's what you got to do, you know, if you're playing a power metal song or something like that. But for what I'm doing, the extended arpeggios and adding some scale tones in there, it makes for a much more interesting sound, and it kind of fits better with what I'm doing personally. And as always, if you enjoyed this lesson, subscribe, hit the bell notification, like, comment, share. Till next time, stay proggy.